Hey everybody, welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock, and we're going to take you through all of the headlines today, getting you set for the UFC on Fox 7 card Saturday night. As always, John Ramsey and Robin Black will be by, and we're going to be chatting the Fox card, and we hear from Jordan Meehan, Josh Thomson, and Nate Diaz. So let's get started. Saturday's main card will feature a highly anticipated lightweight battle between Josh the Punk Thomson and Nate Diaz. Ariel Helwani caught up with the younger Diaz brother, who looks to be moving on up after this fight for a return to the welterweight class.
I'm not hunting it right now, honestly, because my boy's about to put it down and hold the belt for the next, I don't even know however long, so I'm probably going to bail up out of this weight division as soon as this fight is done.
Meanwhile, his opponent Josh Thomson returns to the UFC for the first time since 2004, when the UFC lightweight division was basically dissolved. Thomson is looking for a big homecoming on Saturday and will do so in a venue where he has had many battles with the Strikeforce organization in San Jose.
I just feel that my confidence is there enough to go ahead and be on top of him or be on bottom with him, and also just stand with him, you know, just keeping my distance, making sure that I don't get into a slugfest with him. Don't get coaxed into the whole, you know, hurry up and fight me kind of attitude, and, you know, and make sure I just pick him apart. I'm faster than him, you know, and I'm not as long as him, but there's weapons that I have that are as long as his.
The main card kicks off Saturday with welterweight action as Matt Brown rides a 4-fight win streak into San Jose as he takes on 23-year-old Jordan Young Gun Meehan. Meehan debuted with the UFC only 5 weeks ago at UFC 158, stopping Dan Miller. He was my guest on the MMA Report this week and hopes to make just as big an impact on network television.
I got right back to the gym right away, repping technique and then doing all that. So I think it was a good opportunity to get on Fox and be on the main card. And from doing it before in the past, I think I got a bit of experience, you know, taking short notice fights. I expect a super hard fight. He's been around for a long time, and he's stayed in the organization, and he's got a lot of power and grittiness, and I expect just to stay in his face and you know, do what he does to everybody. I'm going to circle and move when I have to, and counter fight when I have to, but to be one of the fights of the night, we got to go out there and do what he does. You know, as gritty as he is, and you know, if it takes 3 rounds of just grinding it out and going crazy, that's what's going to happen. But I think our styles will match up very well.
And we finish off with Bellator news as they have announced the signing of the janitor, Vladimir Matyushenko, who was released by the UFC earlier this year. The 42-year-old will debut later this year in a non-tournament bout. He once challenged for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship going back to UFC 33 all the way in September of 2001. And we are joined by John Ramsey and Robin Black. A big weekend of fights coming up, the biggest of which San Jose, California, Saturday night, the 7th Fox card for the UFC, headlined by Benson Henderson defending his lightweight gold in a kind of weird unification match here with Gilbert Melendez. And I think that this is a fight that, as we get closer, I think you made some great points this week on 3 rounds, Robin, about Gilbert Melendez here, just doing enough here that could really surprise, I think, a lot of people who are somewhat counting out Melendez in this fight.
Well, that's the thing. He has ways to win. I mean, this is a guy with a crazy chin, a crazy drive, tons of aggression. I mean, that alone is a good base. But there's little spots where maybe he can execute. In the punching range, in the boxing range, he may have a small advantage. If he can get on top, which is a huge task, he may have an advantage there as well. But he is the underdog, make no mistake.
Yeah, I expect Ben Henderson. I think everybody expects Ben Henderson, maybe except for the Cesar Gracie team and Gilbert Melendez and his family, to emerge victorious in this fight. Because, you know, and I know fighting doesn't, you know, it doesn't happen on paper, but when you look at things on paper, it seems that Ben Henderson does have the edge in almost every single area. The most important, I think, is his athleticism and his speed, and I think that will play a big factor.
Yeah, and I mean, I think definitively, if he wins this fight and he does it soundly, we can say that sort of the generation of, you know, you must be a super athlete begins today. Yeah. You know, it really does.
We look at the lightweight bout coming up Saturday night. Could be the final lightweight bout for one Nathan Diaz, who is taking on Josh Thomson. Do you guys kind of scratch your head over this decision that whether Melendez wins or loses, he's looking to return to 170 pounds, where personally he just looked oversized when he had that brief run a couple of years back?
I agree, and especially if you look at what happened when he faced off against Rory McDonald. Rory absolutely
like
ragdolled, exactly. And I think he's just not excited because maybe he doesn't know a lot of the guys in the 155-pound division that would give him a go, because look at, he beat up Donald Cerrone. He's looked good at 155 pounds. He just needs some marquee matchups. then all you have to do is put a matchup between him and Frankie Edgar together at 155 pounds. Who would not want to see these fights? Anthony Pettis versus Nathan Diaz. I think there's lots of fights.
Maybe Robin Black instead of Mike Kogan should be managing this guy's career, because if this is Mike Kogan's defining move as Nathan Diaz's manager, I call it into a bit of question.
I don't necessarily, because let's think about motivation. You lost to the champ at 155. And, you know, in theory, you're starting to hear that George is going to fade away and your brother just wants to have exciting, well-paying fights. All of a sudden, at least you have a path to a title. A tough, challenging, scary path, but we just got to build the guy's size a little bit, put on a few pounds. He's still a young kid, so he can size it up a little bit. This isn't necessarily as crazy as it sounds, and Mike Kogan is a very smart man.
And I do see where Robin's going with this, and I think when it comes down to 170 pounds, it just comes down to the right matchups for this guy. Make it competitive. I mean, 170 pounds, Damian Maia versus Nathan Diaz, I think would be intriguing for people. Yeah. I mean, I think there are fights for him, but I think the best fights for him are at 155 pounds. Okay,
we've talked about the Fox card a lot, but the biggest news of the entire year for John Ramdine is the signing of Vladimir Matyushenko by the Bellator organization. This is an interesting one because since they've moved to Spike, this is the first time they have gone after an ex-UFC fighter, and it seems that they're at least open to the idea that if you fought in the UFC, you're not going to be persona non grata on Spike TV.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's a great acquisition for these guys. You know, he fights hard, he's got a good wrestling base, and who knows, I think he could surprise a lot of people and create some drama with this tournament. Of course, he's not fighting his first bout in the tournament, but you get this victory in Bellator, you go into the tournament, and you know, Michael Chandler did it.
Can he even do the, like, this is a guy who had a torn Achilles tendon not so long ago. I don't know if he could do a tournament of 3 fights in those amount of months.
Old guys in their 40s can surprise you sometimes, and I think people will get behind him. And at 205, you know, that's not their deepest division. It's the lighter weights. I think he's going to do all right.
There you go. Attila Vey, look out. Vladimir Matyushenko is coming to mop the floor in Bellator in a non-tournament bout coming your way. But right now, up your alley, is more of Fight News Now Extra.